Hello, welcome to the Tour of Pleasure. You're in the Enchanted Kingdom of Hermione. I'm Zip Gunn. I'm the Lord Chamberlain of the Enchanted Kingdom. And talking stuff, talking CDs. I've been watching lots of these vinyl channels, and a couple of them had some pretty funny stories about weird places that they had found stuff. And I thought, okay, I can bite. Because I found some stuff in weird places and some not so weird places. Some places, like I got 10 CDs? 8 CDs. 10 CDs. Okay. So 10 CDs that I found in weird places that had thrift stores in them. And the first one, this is not so weird. This is where I live in Souk, BC. This place is now gone, but the St. Vincent de Paul thrift store, which was a really great little thrift store. And they usually never had more than about 30 CDs, and they absolutely refused to sell them for less than $2. So I would never buy anything there, really. But every once in a while, they did have this reputation that if there was something there, it was really good. And I found this there, and this is about as good as it gets for reggae. My absolute favorite era, Junior Murvin, has a bunch of extra stuff I didn't have because I got the vinyl of this. Disco mix of bad weed. $2, worth every nickel. St. Vincent de Paul. May they rest in peace, they're gone now. Now, this next batch are from the thrift store that has replaced the other two that were here in Souk. There was a Salvation Army. It is also gone, and this is the Souk Family Resource Center thrift store, which is run by a bunch of delightful people. And they are great because their CDs, I do believe, are 20 cents. So there's stuff I'll buy for 20 cents that I'm not paying $2 for. And there's stuff like, for instance, and this is number one. Okay, number one, Procol Harum. Now, Procol Harum, they're okay. But this isn't Procol Harum, Conquistador, or Whiter Shade of Pale. This was afterwards. This is after they left A&M and they signed with Chrysalis. And I thought for 20 cents, whatever. Now, the great thing about this CD is I saw these guys back up Supertramp in Victoria here on the Quietest Moments tour, whatever year that was. And Procol Harum with a backup band, and they kicked ass. They were great. Really good. I preferred them to Supertramp, who were pretty good themselves. And they played a song that night that I really liked, and I could never figure out what it was. I kept hearing it here and there on FM radio, and I kept looking through their albums and playing, and I never could find it. And this is like for 25 years. And I was playing this just out of curiosity, having bought it for 20 cents. And there's the song, Bringing Home the Bacon. And I was so happy to have finally found this song. It's probably my favorite Procol Harum song. It actually really rocks out. It's a really good song. And this thrift store is great because you never know when you're going to get here. And so I found this, 20 cents. This may well be better than Stone Crazy, which prior to me finding this was my favorite blues guitar record of all time. This is absolutely fabulous. It's just him and a small band in a small studio somewhere in the South. Somebody gave the bass player a fuzz pedal. And I'll tell you, it's so cool. This is this is an A+ record. There's nothing about this record I don't like. He does a lot of Junior what's his name? Junior Limcomb? Fuck. So bad at these names. Limbaugh. Junior Limbaugh, I think it is. 20 cents, yeah. And because this thrift store is well supplied with a wide variety of things, you go from an A+ Buddy Guy record. Now, I have really wanted this CD for a long time. because I know that it's absolutely no good. This is the biggest skeleton in Elton John's closet. To his credit, in the movie Rocket Man, there is a brief scene where they're making this record where he looks somewhat disinterested, as he may well be, because unique amongst all of the Elton John records you can buy, this album features not a single writing credit for Elton John. Pete Bellotte and a bunch of German people, Michael Hoffman, wrote this, produced it. The only exception to this is what is easily the worst version of Johnny B. Goode you will ever hear in your life. I actually set out to prove this, and I found a thing on the internet that showed me 170 versions of Johnny B. Goode, and I went through about 15 of the most likely candidates, and none of them were as bad as this. This is an absolutely god-awful record that I will be happy to give shelf space to for the sum of 20 cents, simply to note its passing. And yeah, one of those exquisitely bad records. Now, sometimes you'll find great stuff in record stores, but they'll be in a lot of record stores have bins out the front, $1, just crap. And you look through them, and even a record store run by a whole bunch of record nerds is gonna miss stuff. And normally I used to go through record stores' $2 bins and go, nothing here. But as I started looking through them, you'd find the odd gem. And my old dear friend Rod Lyle, he of Lyle's Place, legendary Victoria record store who just closed recently. Rod finally retired, and Rod had a whole pile of these boxes up the front of his store for 95 cents. And I would sit there and just talk hockey with Rod and look through the 95-cent boxes. And one fine day I found this. And I didn't know much about this guy. I'd heard the name. I'd heard the name in context with positive things. It's on Capricorn Warner Brothers. And I'm a label nut, and Capricorn was a neat label, which had disappeared for quite a while. And it sort of got revived briefly under the auspices of Warner's. And I think they put out Cake. I think Cake might have been a Capricorn band. But this was Colonel Bruce Hampton and his Aquarium Rescue Unit, which is, and for whatever reason, people describe it as being like Fish. Now, I don't really like Fish, and I absolutely love this record. 95 cents, and it's got a bunch of guys on it. I'm trying to remember the names. I want to get this right. Some of the musicians on this, the Colonel himself was in the Hampton Grease Band, a legendary anarchist sort of weird band from yesteryear who made what is reputed to be the worst-selling record in Columbia Records history. But this has, what's the guy's name? Oh, tell me who plays on it? Oh, here we are. Otale Burbridge, who played with the Allman Brothers bands. Jimmy Herring, who's such a good guitar player that it's dangerous to listen to him because you want to throw all your guitars away. Matt Mundy on mandolin, who, again, is just this. There's a mandolin solo on this that'll just blow your mind. And somebody named Apartment Q258, who seems to be the drummer. And then Bruce himself playing a thing called a Chatzoid, which is a weird guitar-like thing that he built. And they play this great, it's like jam band, quirky, very technically adept, but kind of funky southern. And they made 2 records for Capricorn. Needless to say, the other one I couldn't find it anywhere, so I actually had to order it online. And it didn't cost me that much. But now this stuff I think is getting expensive. Hampton Grease Band is, well, this 95 cents led me on a gravy train where I bought all the Glenn Phillips records, all the Hampton Grease Band CD, the other Bruce Hampton CD, and a few others. So it probably cost me to spend $50 or $80. But great music. It took me down a great trail. So there you go. Even the record stores have stuff for nothing. that is great if you look. And another record store, and this time now we're going to get into some weird places. When the Empress and I were in Amsterdam, I went on a bit of a walking tour of the city looking for the various record stores. And of course, as time has passed, the actual record stores that carried CDs kind of all disappeared. And so if you were lucky, you'd find a record store full of, in my opinion, rather expensive vinyl, and they might grudgingly have a few CDs, but usually they didn't. And they were usually really sort of neat and tidy places, and the Dutch nice tidy store. But I finally found this one place, and I don't remember what part of Amsterdam it was in. Hey, it was near a canal, and I went in, and it was clearly a vinyl emporium, and it was absolutely full of vinyl, of all different types and sizes, and it was very chaotic. There were piles of records everywhere, and there was a real, clearly you were in with a whole bunch of analog vinyl people. And so I went in and kind of poked around, and I don't, especially when I'm overseas, I don't buy vinyl because it's hard to move around, unless it's something I gotta have. But I asked them finally, I said, do you have any CDs? And they kind of look at me like, CDs? Well, yeah, I think there are some upstairs. And I go up these stairs, and upstairs it's even, like a lot of record stores, the farther away you get from the front desk, the more insane it gets. So this is up, upstairs, mountains of records. Nothing's in any order. And in the middle of it all is this corner with boxes of CDs. And everything's covered in dust. It's just a disaster. And I start going through it, and there was, and because I'm in Europe, there's a lot of weird stuff that I have never heard of. And so I'm desperately trying to figure out what the heck I'm in. And through all of this stuff, it was all just junk. But then I finally came across a familiar name. And the familiar name was David Moss, avant-garde percussionist, New York City. On a scale of 1 to 10, avant-garde weirdness, he's usually about a 9.5. Now this is typical. It's done under the auspices of the German radio. Okay, that's good. And it's on No Man's Land Records. Now, distributed by Recommended. Now that is that means it's recommended. But what the hell is it, he asked. Okay, it's David Moss with a guy named Axel Otto and Franz Schultz. So it's trios. And this record is made in Austria. I think I paid €1 for this, because they didn't know what it was either. And I kind of looked at it, and there's some poetry in it, and then, where is it? Okay, well, there's the three of them. And one of these guys does electronics. Do they actually tell me somewhere? Oh, well, they give you a little page on each of them. Frank Schulte, blah, blah, blah. What does he play? Synthesizer, sampler, tapes, records, vocals, piano, L effects. Alex Otto plays Windlock-Roof, whatever that means. Bird calls, trombone, vocals, toys, zither, plastics, metals, wood, tapes. And then there's David Moss, voice, acoustic, electric, percussion, concertina, zither, toys, and effects. Now this is pretty strange. However, I put this thing in my car in the old shuffle mode, and it's never coming out. Because when it shows up in the shuffle, it's always like, wow, what is this? Because it's quite varied. There's a lot of tracks on it. No Man's Land, 23. Moody Piece for Unknown Women. Sex Balloon for Buddha with Hiccups. I really like this record. It was just this weird thing in this weird place. And it was like, yeah, take it. They're giving €1 for it. Yeah, we're getting into weird places now. Okay, so where were we? I don't remember. Central Alberta. That's all I can remember. Near Lethbridge? No, north. We came upon a Mennonite thrift store, and this place was really interesting because there was certain things they wouldn't sell. I can't remember what they were. Kind of weird. Anyway, they had another chaotic disaster of CDs. Now, one of my rules, buying CDs in thrift stores, which I rarely violate, is it's gotta have the booklet. If it's a box set, it's gotta have the booklet. If it doesn't have the booklet and it's something really, really good, I'll still buy it, but I'll be bummed. If it's really, really, really rarely do I buy a regular CD that's missing the booklet. However, sometimes you don't really need the booklet. And in the case of this, and again, this was 50 cents, I found myself a solo Abdullah Ibrahim CD on Enja, entitled, what's it, African Dawn. And if I remember correctly, the cover is just a picture of an African dawn. And it rather helpfully, thank you, Germans, puts the song titles on the CD, so I don't need that list. So I don't have to go look it up on AllMusic when I listen to it. Absolutely wonderful CD. Abdullah Ibrahim on solo piano is one of my absolute favorite types of music. And yeah, the Mennonite thrift store yielded that for me. And then there was the thrift store on, I believe it was Main Island. And this is a thrift store that's open only periodically, as you might guess, because a very small island out in the Gulf Islands here. And again, they were lodged in the corner in an old broken CD stand, and they were very hard to get to. And that's usually a good sign because it means nobody's looked through them for a long time. So I'm crawling around getting extremely dirty. And I should mention, everything here, these amazing CDs were alone in vast seas of useless garbage. There was just nothing else there. These were one-offs. Oh, I found one, which is sort of, if it's a good one, you feel good. And this one yielded one. And again, this yielded a CD I did not actually know existed, but I was speechless because it appears to be a best of the mighty Joe Braith, who is legendary in some circles, including Morrissey, who I think put this together, which is not necessarily a terrific selling point. But if you know anything about Joe Braith, this was an attempt to create the first ever truly gay pop star using just nothing but money. And this fellow cost Elektra Records a lot of money, making two pretty not very good records. The first one is kind of okay. It sort of sounds like Ziggy Stardust, but without the talent. And the lyrics are just really, like, look him up on YouTube. He's a riot. This was I think it was 50 cents. I'm pretty sure they were cheap. And finally, and I've talked about this one once before a long time ago, but I'm going to bring it out again because it was just such a surreal experience. But the Empress and I visited Malta a few years back, and we spent a couple of nights inside the walled city of Medina, which is the ancient capital of Malta, and it's a pretty cool place. It is indeed a walled city. The streets are like little narrow, lanes through the walled buildings, and we actually managed to rent an Airbnb inside the city, and there's only maybe 250 people live there. And it's pretty touristy, but it's still really cool. And just sort of, if you follow the lane around and took a left, and it took us, we were there 2 days. 2 days? And there's not much to see. It's not very big. But there's like a couple of restaurants and a few gift shops. There's a torture museum. Of course there's a torture museum. And it was like an ice cream shop and a bar and a couple of sort of family restaurants. But when we went to there's the main square, really, which of course fronts the gigantic church. And there's a lot of churches in Malta, boy. And this is no exception, a big, big Catholic church. And to our complete amazement, as you walk up to the church, there to your right is a little building on the corner, like it's a big block of buildings, but on the corner bit of it is a thrift store. And this little thrift store, it was open this one day. It wasn't, of course, like all little weird thrift stores. It's only open 2 or 3 days a week, run by ancient volunteers who, can't hear. And so we go in, and it's absolute chaos. It's just a complete jumble. And I don't see anything that I really, there's clothes, there's lots of junk. It's crammed full of people in it. It's really hard to move around. And finally, I'm trying to, and it's a little rabbit warren-y thing. Finally, say to one of the ladies, "You don't happen to have any CDs here, do you?" Maybe upstairs. And there's an upstairs. So they take me to this windy staircase. And I go upstairs, and the rule, the farther away you are from the front desk, okay, nobody'd been upstairs for a while, I don't think. And there were bookshelves on the wall with books in them. Well, that's about where the order ended. And I found a whole bunch of weird stuff upstairs, like Deutsche Grammophon 4D demonstration discs and kind of strange stuff like that. And then I went back downstairs, and of course, another rule of the thrift stores is there's always thrift CDs in 2 completely separate locations. And this thrift store was no exception. And so I thought, oh, look, there's about this many CDs here. And I found this, and I went, what the hell is this? And I kind of looked at it. Okay, it's going to be one of these Thanks to the Opera pull-up orchestra. And I'm like, what the heck? So I kind of look at it, and it originates from Switzerland, the pull-up orchestra. And they are one of these weird sort of European bands where the drummer plays like a bass drum with a stick or something. And it's kind of like a marching band. But so we got snare, trommel, percussion, bass, trommel, percussion, tuba, posaune, which is trombone, tenor saxophone, and then at the bottom, rap. And they are indeed sort of a hip-hop band from Switzerland. At any rate, a completely weird thing to find. Look them up on YouTube. There's videos of them that are really only the Swiss can come up with something this strange. And it would figure I would find it in a thrift store in the attic of a thrift store in Malta in the main square of the city of Medina. So that's probably the weirdest place I've found anything cool to date. So there you have it. I'm going to try and dig out more stuff like this, what I call thrift stories, because there's thrift stories in a lot of my stuff, and some of them are pretty funny stories. So we'll keep digging around for more. Anyways, I'm going to go back to listening to the Amazing Horse 10-hour version, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and take care of each other. We'll talk to you soon.